Hi, this is Salman Bharti and we are here at Voice Summit in New Jersey, and today we have with us Adrien Schmidt. You are co-founder and CEO of Aristotle. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Hey, Swapnil, thanks for having me.
Yeah. First of all, what is the story behind the name?
Aristotle. Aristotle is a Greek philosopher. And
we all know him, yeah.
We all know him at least from his teachings. And what set him apart was that he taught through dialogues, through questions and answers. And that's what we do in our product. We really believe in dialogues as a way to communicate the answers and the insights that we provide.
So what exactly do you do through dialogues?
Yeah, we do conversational business intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So you all know about your dashboards and your reports, and when you get your insight from data, well, instead of having a graphical user interface and having charts and visuals, we do it through simple conversations. You ask a question in plain English and you get an answer, and that engages in a dialogue, and that's where Aristotle comes from.
So basically, you serve enterprise customers, if I'm not wrong. You're a B2B company, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So which means a lot of data analytics that they already have through different services and products, you know?
Yes.
So you create an interface to access those. Is that correct?
Yeah, we create an interface to databases or data sources.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have internal databases, then we connect to them.
So it's like they can like whatever they have. You don't restrict it, right?
Yeah, we actually have a whole environment to what we call voice activate your database or your data source.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a proprietary database, as long as it's structured data, right, we can pretty much voice activate it.
Right. So if you look at the consumer space, there are a lot of use cases where voice does make sense, you know, especially with Alexa and Google Home. They have. What is the demand or need in the enterprise space?
Yeah, well, it's a great question because I think the enterprise is clearly a couple years behind consumer in the adoption of voice and natural language interfaces. Now, the same reasons why it's working for consumer will work for enterprise, meaning speed, convenience, ubiquity. You could use it anywhere in your car, when you're in a meeting, in a driving, in your situation. So those reasons of speed to access information, we call it time to data. Ubiquity are compelling reasons to bring those interfaces inside of the enterprise. And I just think that it's new, so people are still in the enterprise working out, what's the compelling reason to buy today. But I think there's a pretty general agreement that the market is shifting in that direction. So we have found some sweet spots to focus on right now, and we're going to grow from there.
Tell us about these sweet spots where you find.
Well, let me give you an example. You're a SaaS company. You provide a service. You have your customers, and more likely than not, you're going to say, "I'm going to make this even smarter." Right? So I'm going to provide my service, and I'm going to provide you analytics about how you're using my service. We call that customer-facing analytics. Well, if you provide just dashboards to your users, you're asking them to learn how to use those dashboards. You're asking them to become familiar with an interface that, to be honest, they don't necessarily know how to use. Now imagine that you're saying, all you have to do to get insights from my platform is to ask me a question and get an answer. You don't have to log into the platform. You don't have to remember how to use my user interface to get it. I can provide you those insights through simple questions and answers. It makes for a really compelling case story. So that's where we're starting.
Have you ever worked in the consumer space, or you have always worked in the enterprise space?
Me personally, I've always worked in enterprise. Actually, I've been working in analytics for about 15 years now, in various roles.
How unique is the enterprise space when it comes to voice?
Well, so I've not worked in the consumer space, but I'm a user of the consumer products that are voice activated, right? So the difference is that consumers buy things that they don't really need. Right? I mean, we all do that, right? Just look at we're covered with devices.
Let's not get into that, yeah.
Yeah, let's not get into that, exactly. So companies are supposed to act in a more rational way, right? So there's a business case that supports a purchase, right? There's a real business rationale that has to be set up. And so I think that for voice interfaces, there's a desire of companies, of actually people in companies, to get the same convenience that they have in their consumer world, but they're still working on the business rationale and the business case to buy a voice interface. Are you getting a voice interface to reduce manpower, labor? And that's kind of the typical consumer, customer service bot, right? Where you actually want to reduce the number of calls that go to your customer support. we think that that is one use case, and it's maybe the most obvious one, and that's the one that's being rolled out today. But there are use cases where you actually use voice interfaces to create something new. And that's our kind of what we're pushing at when we're doing voice interfaces on top of data, because then it creates like a form of data democratization. People get access to data when they need it. That drives better decisions because you have the insights you need when you need them, whether you're on a call with a customer, whether you're in a meeting, whether you're just preparing a report or a presentation for your management. Data becomes something that you use casually. And that's something that voice interfaces or even natural language interfaces are in a unique position to deliver.
The flip side of the coin is that the way enterprise space is different from consumer is also that at times you're dealing with a lot of data or information which is either sensitive, trade secret. Do you also offer other interfaces, or voice is the only interface? Because there may be a lot of cases where they don't want things to be spoken loudly, maybe in a meeting, where you can just look at your screen and you get the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So we offer a multimodal way of working. And I even think that in our space, in the analytics space, it's very important to be able to display something when you need to, whether it's to offer options to users, for example, as a follow-up interaction. If you talk about your sales calls and you want to drill it down into one specific opportunity, it could be interesting to just tap on your Echo show display and go into that opportunity. The other thing is, it's also good to be multi-channel. So a user could have a voice interface, but then also be, as you say, either in an open space or somewhere where that user just wants to talk through or to chat through Slack or through Microsoft Teams. And we just want to be everywhere the user wants to message, whether it's through voice or text.
Can you talk about what kind of industries are you serving, or what kind of businesses do you cater to?
Yeah, so we when we built out the product, we were pretty spread out in terms of use cases, right? In financial services, in consumer goods, in tech. And I think our sweet spot we're focusing on right now are basically B2B SaaS companies. So companies that have this B2B SaaS service and that provide analytics to their customers. So that's where we see, that's where we're focusing our efforts right now.
Right. So we are here at the Voice Summit. What has been your experience so far?
Yeah, this is definitely a nascent industry that is getting together around voice and saying, okay, what's coming up? What's next? I think we're writing a new type of user interface for consumers and enterprises, and so there's a lot to learn from each other. Like, what worked? What didn't work? Where do you see traction? Where do you not see traction? What great ideas? What new technologies are coming out? I mean, this is a new space. I don't think there are already guidelines that are widely accepted. Everyone's kind of writing his own story, and so sharing that story is super important. And that's what we see at a conference like Voice, being able to understand the state of the art, see some new tech, think about how we can incorporate this new tech into our own product, maybe do some partnerships, and get a feeling of where the industry is going.
Right, and you're right. It's kind of infancy stage right now.
It is.
But what trends do you see? What opportunities do you see? At the same time, what challenges do you see for this particular interface?
So the trend, and I mean, if you ask me, this is what we get from our customers are things like, obviously we're going to be using this in the future, in the near future, right? So a lot of, I think, whatever the industry, wherever, whatever function you're inside of your company today, you will be using voice interfaces really soon. And if you talk about 6 years, I think that, most of the stuff that we do today through graphical user interfaces will just simply, be replaced with voice or natural language. There's so much more freedom that you get from using a natural language interface compared to a graphical user interface, that a lot of what you do today on your computer screen will be replaced with a natural language conversational interface. I think this is such a huge fundamental shift. It's as big as mobile, right? I mean,
it is, yeah.
So, it's not quite there yet. We're just at the beginning of that, but it's just massive. It's going to take over enterprise software. It's going to take over consumer experience. It's going to take over a lot.
I'm also a science fiction writer, right? So whenever I watch any science fiction movie from future, of course, hell from that days,
Yeah.
But you also see there's a screen and display, maybe there'll be hologram. So do you see in future, it will not just be voice, it will also be, as you said, you may need some visual. Do you think that, the ultimate, destination is audio and video.
Yeah, you mean having this multimodal, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I totally think that's. I'm not saying that you have to replace all the visuals.
No, nothing will ever be replaced. It's just evolution, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just that I think that when we think about visual today, it's not just some like really cool stuff, but it's also menus and buttons.
By
and
visual, I mean just
drop-downs.
putting a face to the voice. When you look at all those, you see a screen and the girl or boy is talking to you.
Oh yeah, like an avatar or something.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I think that is the ultimate, where that's the ideal place where you want to be.
But also in maybe completely different forms.
We don't- yeah, we
it
just
doesn't even
don't-
have to be a humanoid form.
You just never know.
It could be. So have you seen the movie Her, for example?
Yes.
No? Well, you never see a materialization
Right.
of that person, right?
Right.
I mean, of that. What do they call it? OS, right? It's just a voice that answers questions. That's becoming increasingly. So I think it's not so much about the physical representation,
Right.
as it's more about how proactive they're going to be.
Right.
And I think the big thing in the impersonation of an assistant is that it's not only going to respond to your questions, but it's also going to be proactive in
Right.
anticipating what you need.
Right.
And so in our industry, for example, in analytics, what we're looking into is not just to be able to answer a question and be accurate about the response. It's also to say, you might want to know that, and push information gently to you so you get it, and you might want to have a dialogue to dig a little bit deeper. But being proactive is probably going to be a pretty big part of the future.
You're right. Yeah, and this space is quite futuristic and science fictional. The voice space.
It is. Yeah.
So Adrien, thank you so much for talking to me today, and I actually look forward to it because now I'm more and more interested in this voice interface.
Cool.
It's going to become one of the focus at TFR as well. So I'll look forward to talk to you again in the future.
I
Thank you.
certainly look for that too.